we're super excited to talk about all things marketing. I think given the last panel went with a super serving of Web3, we are going to specifically avoid any reference to Web3. So I think—
Thank God.
Exactly.
Thank God for that, Geoff.
Collective sigh from Geoff and Soyoung.
I don't know, Geoff, how I could talk about Web3 when I literally don't know if my background is correct or not. Is it actually correct, or do I need to reverse it?
No, you're good.
I'm 2 years into this pandemic and I still can't tell what my Zoom background is, how it's showing up to other people.
You are 100% good. Yeah, that's half the battle, the Zoom background. That's why I just go for the blur. It's just easy. So for everyone's benefit, before we get into just sort of a variety of topics, we're going to cover off on leadership. We're going to cover off on the needs and challenges, the sort of skill sets of the modern marketer and marketing organization. We're going to talk about speed and risk taking. Can you give everyone listening just a sense for your background?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm thrilled to be back with the Brand Innovators community for this first event that I'm doing actually in 2022. What a great way to kick off the year. So I am Soyoung Kang. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at EOS Products. We are a privately held personal care brand that is most famous for our round sphere-shaped lip balm. And I've been here for about 3.5 years. Prior to that, I spent a big chunk of my career at Victoria's Secret and Bath & Body Works. And then earlier in my career, I was actually a strategy person, management consulting. So I've had a very varied kind of roller coaster ride of a career, and have had some pretty non-traditional kind of steps along the way. I love what I'm doing now at EOS. I oversee the marketing, all of the aspects of marketing, media, brand strategy, creative, as well as product innovation and e-commerce.
Cool, amazing. So you and the company were just recently named to TikTok's first ever culture drivers list. And yes, clap it up. And that means that they see your brand as doing the best, most engaging, entertaining work on the platform. Can you tell us about the work you did and the process around how you did it? For those of you that don't know, and it was teased a little bit with the bless your cooch intro. I can't believe I just said that on a panel, but you'll get why in a second. There was a TikTok creator that had a product review, let's say, and Soyoung's going to go into it, but it's just an amazing example of agility and how you can sort of leverage the sum total of what your purview is to get things done. So with that, I sharing the journey and how you got to be named to that list and how you were able to move fast would be amazing for everybody to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a huge honor. It's TikTok's first ever culture driver list, and it's a pretty astounding list of brands to be sitting beside. And so it was a huge honor, not only for me, but really for the collective team that was a part of this entire initiative. So this was something that was a real like explosive moment for our brand. So a lot of people know us as a lip care brand. Most people know us as the round lip balm, as I mentioned earlier. But what a lot of people don't know is that we actually also have a cult favorite shave business as well. And so our shave cream has been flying, I would say, somewhat under the radar for quite some time, but like kind of, if you know, you know. So there are a lot of fans who like sing its praises across social media. And one of those TikToks kind of came across in the second quarter of last year. An amazing young TikToker named Carly Joy, her handle is Killjoy, posted this TikTok about like how much she loves our shave cream. It was in response to somebody said, like, you know, how do you avoid razor bumps? And the beauty of TikTok is that, you know, I think for those people who are like really deep in it, a lot of people get their information from TikTok. I know, Geoff, you and I talked yesterday about how, like, you know, we got to like make sure that we don't turn TikTok into the new Wikipedia, because maybe there's some places where you need to get some more legit information. But in this case, This TikToker was highly educational, highly informational. She posted this really unbelievably funny, authentic, profanity laden, in your face, hilarious TikTok about how she uses EO shave cream to bless her effing cooch. And so and she goes on and on. She goes in extreme detail. There's like tutorial gestures and all of these things. And as soon as the TikTok was posted, there were like millions and millions of views and likes that were getting posted, and we got tagged in it really quickly. And so we were trying to reach out to her in order to be able to do something, because her words, her style, her authenticity were like so inspiring to us. And we couldn't get her attention because she's an influencer, she's a creator, she's really busy, her DMs are flooded. And so we couldn't get her attention. And so we actually turned to our creative agency partners and we said, look, there's this thing happening. It's happening super fast. We live in TikTok time. We know we need to like move super duper fast on this. Like, do you have any ideas? I think I emailed them at 6 p.m. On a Tuesday, and I had an answer by 10 a.m. the next day. And by 6 p.m. that next day, we were in production with a limited edition run of our shave cream that replaced all of like the regular words with this TikToker's words. And the goal was essentially just to produce enough to basically get her attention. That was it. We knew we couldn't do anything with it unless we got her attention and actually like partnered with her and compensated her. And so we posted a response TikTok within 3 days. We had the product in our hands. We posted a response. We duetted her, and that finally got her attention. And that allowed for us to create a multi-week-long campaign called "Bless Your Effing Cooch." That basically was all about like the celebration of like real talk, authenticity, destigmatizing something that is just basically a normal self-care kind of routine that many people kind of like do anyway. And the result was unbelievable. Our business essentially doubled in shave cream nationally across all outlets. It actually, for a period of time, we became the #1 shave cream across men and women at Target, which is unbelievable. And then we sold out, and we were just basically chasing that supply. And the momentum has really continued. We've had strong double-digit growth in that category pretty much since this campaign launched. So it really just was an astounding moment. It was an astounding lesson in the value of speed, the value of reactive marketing, and frankly, being brave and taking some risks in your storytelling and leveraging the type of content and language that your audience, your community is already using anyway. But as a brand, it really sort of brings you into the community as opposed to having that like arm's length distance that I think a lot of brands have historically had. So that is how we became a 2021 TikTok culture driver, and why David introduced us with those specific words.
That's amazing. For everyone's edification. So when you talk about that, all of that, I assume, was earned media, things that were duets off of, so like, did you actually have to do any paid advertising, or was it?
We did actually. So the goal here was, I've said this before, but these viral moments are just that. They can be moments. And I think a smart marketer's job is to figure out how you take that moment and turn it into business momentum. And in order to do that, what you're looking to do is really amplify and keep that thread going, keep the story going. So in this case, we had obviously the massive amount of attention from the earned moment. And we also supplemented it though, and we launched an entire creator campaign where we tapped into other super duper authentic, real, funny, and very popular TikTok creators who then put their own spin on going through the multi-step process of how they achieve another catchphrase from this TikTok was a smooth ass hoo-ha. So that was how do you achieve a smooth ass hoo-ha? And in their own words, really speaking to something that really brands haven't spoken to, and frankly, people haven't spoken to. And so that allowed us to then take the earned momentum and really pull it forward into a paid campaign that stretched out for a course of months.
So this is obviously a great example of how to connect with Gen Z. TikTok is majority Gen Z platform. But But when you think about connecting outside of the, are you thinking about connecting with that audience in creative ways, both on TikTok and other platforms?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge, I would say. I think as a brand that has always been had a special connection with a younger demographic, we think a lot about what it takes to connect authentically with that demographic, and in particular, it's more challenging than ever with Gen Z, because the majority of Gen Z, they're more likely than any other demographic to not trust brands, right? And they're more likely than any other demographic, 2 to 3 times more likely actually, to make their purchase decisions based on either their own research, word of mouth through friends and family, or through social media. And so we work, we work a lot and think a lot about how we can authentically engage in communities where Gen Z, is spending their time. And in particular, TikTok has been a really big part of our strategy as a result of that. But not just in a typical kind of push advertising model, but in true engagement. That's how we measure our success, because really being a brand that is within the community allows for us to have a more authentic and real relationship with Gen Z versus, just focusing and investing on the paid media side of things. So a lot of our team is very active in trying to be a part of the community, doing literally daily organic content creation, doing daily community engagement management, like having conversations and dialogue with the community on an ongoing basis. And it allows us to find these opportunities that we can then turn into really big opportunities for the brand, like this Cooch Blessings campaign, because by not having our finger on the pulse of what was happening within TikTok, we could have let that kind of moment slip by and miss the opportunity. And as you know, I think speed is paramount. And so for us to be sort of have our finger on the pulse and be part of the community and be listening and engaging constantly, it allowed for us to jump on the opportunity as soon as it happened.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think especially going back to what you initially said about being authentic, you have to be in the community to have credibility with the community. So through that journey, which obviously continues to this day, what surprised you? Like anything sort of puzzle you in terms of insights or behaviors, any disappointments?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are always things that puzzle you when it's, I guess, like I'm not a Gen Z person, so clearly there are always things that I'm learning and that my team is learning. I would say the unpredictability of what will work and what won't work. And so what we've learned over time is that, given that it's hard to know what's going to resonate. Sometimes it's hard to know what's going to take off and develop a life of its own. What you really need to do is have that always on mentality, so that you have a lot of at-bats and that you're engaging on a consistent basis, because you can't really put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to social media. It's really a consistency game. And even just when you think you've got the rules figured out, the rules change. There is constant evolution happening on these platforms, TikTok as well as other platforms. And so experimentation, testing, tinkering, learning, and taking risks will always be a part of a smart social media strategy.
Makes sense. So I want to go back to the sort of the how of it all. Because I think what you said when you were talking about your background was extremely important. I didn't want to like put the cart before the horse and go down a rabbit hole, but for those of you that didn't catch it, your role, in addition to being CMO, you also oversee product and innovation. Can you talk about that and talk about how it has benefited you, obviously with this example, but taking it one step further as you think about the challenges of today and tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, so I do think that the fact that the marketing team at EOS consists of such a broad span, inclusive of product innovation, really kind of greased the wheels for being able to move quickly on this opportunity. I think more broadly, I know that's not always possible structurally within all organizations, and not all marketers can own, kind of that area of the business. But I do think that having an appreciation for the importance of product in your marketing strategy is something that all marketers should embrace, because I really do believe in my core that consumers are very, very smart. And And as you just mentioned, in particular, our consumer Gen Z, they're doing their own research, they're developing their own opinions, and they're not, taking it upon blind faith what brands are telling them. And so I passionately believe that all great marketing is centered around great product. So having great product, it's not enough. You need the great marketing to surround it. But having great marketing, if it's not based on a great product benefit, differentiation, superiority, consumers will always figure it out. You might fool them once with great marketing, but you're not going to fool them twice, and then you're not going to have a long-term business. So I think that if you can have both, obviously, I think that would be ideal. And if you can't, having that appreciation for and respect for the product function, and then developing the kinds of close relationships and partnerships to allow you to be able to work seamlessly and collaborate, so that it becomes a more integrated kind of way to reach consumers and tell more compelling stories and tell richer stories, and also at speed, I think would be the ideal thing for all marketers to strive for.
Yeah, it seems so simple, like when you talk about it, and when we think about consumers and how smart they are, it would make complete sense that every CMO of today and tomorrow would have reverence for product, not just the story. But this is why you have been able to do what you do. And I think, doubling the business, off the back of an insight that was gleaned from an emerging platform like TikTok is brilliant. So I give major marketing props to you. As we sort of pivot on from that, though, I think another sort of key skill is leadership and guidance. And so you've been at the company for 3.5 years, and we could spend the next 12 hours straight talking about what has happened in the world over the course of the last 3.5 years. So, to that end, when you think about that, what are the values you think are critical to lead a team in, let's call it, this tumultuous, and that's probably an understatement, sort of era of living?
Have we all lived like multiple lives in the past 2 years? It certainly feels like it, doesn't it? And I would say that what I thought that this job was, both specifically within EOS as well as just more broadly a marketing leadership role, is different today than what I thought it was pre-pandemic. And I think that's for the better, because I think the lessons that we've taken away as leaders are lessons that, frankly, if they hadn't been accelerated by a global pandemic, would have been better. But, at the very least, we've learned some things. And I think that the number one thing that when I speak to peers, that we talk about empathy. We talk about the fact that the lived lives have become, the lives that our organizations are living, the lives that our society and our communities are living, are more, we're more aware of the challenges that people have in their personal lives now more than ever. And that's happened not only through the pandemic, but many other things that have happened through the course of the pandemic. We've also gone through a major social and racial justice movement in the US kind of accelerating. We've also gone through a really tumultuous political environment. We've gone through, like more dire information and news about climate change. So there are many stressors in our modern society that impact the way that our consumers, but also, closer to home, our employees and our organizations are experiencing. And so any leader, and in particular marketers who are really meant to kind of have their finger on the pulse of how people are thinking and what they're experiencing in their emotions, should be incredibly aware and placing it through an empathetic filter, thinking about what the people around you are going through. And that's been a really big part of the, my eyes sort of like opening up through the course of the past couple of years. And I think applying that to how you think about, like, look at the Great Resignation. And we said we were going to stay away from buzzwords, but there you have it. I've said a buzz phrase, but it just shows you that people are really reevaluating their values. And as a leader today, if you're not kind of demonstrating the level of empathy required in modern leadership, I think you're really going to be at risk with your talent, which means you're going to be at risk with your business. And that's really ultimately what we're all here to do, right? Is to be able to grow our brand, but grow our business. And so I think that's become table stakes in a way that was not obvious to many leaders pre-pandemic. I think beyond that, I think that, we talked about this example from TikTok being an example of speed and risk taking. I do also think that like the unpredictability in the past 2 years has really shown the value of being able to be agile, moving at speed, be willing to constantly be in test and learn mode so that you can react to the rapidly changing circumstances of the environment around you. And to be able to not only be that way as a leader, but be able to create a culture of that within your organization. And that's been something that I think, I'm grateful that I already came into this role and pre-pandemic have always been someone who really believed fundamentally in like risk-taking and measured kind of like testing and always having a learning agenda in everything that we do. And it's really served us well, I think, in some of like the leaner times in the past 2 years to be able to deploy that that mentality so that we could just frankly, like sometimes just survive. And then other times when the opportunity presents itself, like in this, viral TikTok moment, to thrive.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought it back to risk taking, because before when you had said that, I remembered one of the points you made yesterday when we were catching up. You were moving fast and you were, because you oversaw product, you were able to sort of make that decision. And then you're like, oh, I probably should ask my boss for the CEO for permission. But I do think the reason why I'm bringing that up, I think it's not just about risk taking. It's everything that you said thrown into the basket, because had you not been an empathetic leader and had the trust of your team.
No, that's totally right. Yeah.
Like taking a risk and being seen as a maverick versus taking a risk with people's trust, they're two different things. And so I think
that's exactly right. It's funny you say that, because trust was when I'd written some notes to myself, and trust was one of the things that I wanted to talk about actually in terms of building a culture of smart risk taking. Because look, I mean, like not smart risk taking, you're reckless. Smart risk taking, you're brave. And that makes all the difference. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have the trust from your leadership as well as from your team that you are making measured, smart risks. That means you have to have trust, which sometimes, it takes time to build that trust. And it's not something that you're owed, you have to earn it. But you also do that through creating more of an open mindset for learning throughout your team and more broadly with your cross-functional partners, let's say on the C-suite, which is, I think that being able to embrace that, being able to embrace the risk taking, and then sometimes you do fail, and that's okay, because in my mind, failure is not failure, it's learning. Now, don't do it twice. If you fail at something, get some learning out of it, and then use that to adjust how you're going to tackle the next challenge or take on the next risk. But having that sort of like learning mindset, I think makes all the difference in the world in terms of being able to kind of consider the risks in a smart way versus in a maverick way.
Yeah, I think this conversation we're having is so timely because not to go back to our favorite acronyms, but like everything now is about the tactic or the medium, not the skill set to navigate. And so I think again, major props to you for really just being emblematic of what the modern CMO should be, which is, again, that sort of mix of all of those things, so that when you take a risk, you've built trust. When you take a risk, you've listened to insights. When you take a risk, that, everything is not about winning or losing. It's about learning. And then ultimately long game, you win. I think it's like a super timely and relevant conversation, because a lot of folks out there get caught up in the excitement of a technology or a platform. Sorry.
I totally Geoff, I totally agree with that. And I think that the key with all of these things is really that and in particular, even in the context of some of the technologies that we've been discussing, is that we're not all going to know everything. We're not all going to be experts at everything. And in particular, in our field, in our industry, things are changing and evolving all the time. It's what I love about marketing. I think that marketing is exciting, because if you are not always learning in marketing, you are very, very quickly going to fall behind the industry. So learning is always, I think, to be like that. That's the goal for all of us at any given time. But what you can't do is spread yourself too thin. So I think that for myself, I've had to resist the urge to chase things, sort of the trendy things. And there are times when I have like real FOMO about things. Like I see what other people are doing, and I want to do everything. But at the end of the day, I have a finite set of resources. I have a finite size team. I have a finite number of hours in the day during which to accomplish all of these goals. And I really have to do fewer things well, and do fewer things well, but always leave a little room for learning. We always leave a little bit of dollars for learning. We always leave a few hours for learning. We always throw in, whenever we develop any campaign, we throw in one tweak, one thing that we want to learn from that we've never done before, and then we learn from it. And it's not about necessarily taking risks with everything. That's why I say they have to be smart and they have to be measured. You have to kind of always leave room for the risk, but it doesn't mean that the bulk of what we do is just kind of like throwing caution to the wind and doing crazy things.
Totally. I want to make sure we get to a couple more things before we move into the Q&A. So you're involved with Ascend, as David mentioned, the largest Pan-Asian business professional membership organization in North America. Can you tell us how you got involved with that organization and the mission behind it?
Yeah. So, I talked earlier about empathy, and I think part of it has been honestly having empathy for myself as a human being. And part of that empathy has been recognizing when I was feeling fear and anxiety and stress in the course of the last 2 years. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I, as a member of the AAPI community, I was afraid. And very, very early on, there were many instances that were being circulated within my community of the hate crimes and bias incidents that at that point were actually not getting a ton of national media attention. And I felt helpless. Like I didn't know what I could do to help. And I would say that I spent a few months trying to figure out, like, how am I helping? Is it grassroots community support? Is it through working within my organization? Is it like how can I best serve this community? And I was really fortunate enough to have a member of a very trusted friend who is a part of the Ascend organization reach out and say, hey, we're going to be starting up a marketing sort of community group within this organization. It is the largest Pan-Asian professional membership organization in North America, but it's not just that. They also have really, really great foundation and nonprofit side that basically does intellectual white paper exercises that basically serve the entire community. They advocate on behalf of increasing representation at the C-suite, at the board level. So things that kind of like maybe fall more within my skill set, which is professional support, marketing, bringing in members of the marketing community into the organization. And so that was really my way of channeling the personal like fear and anxiety that I was experiencing and putting it towards something good. Now, being able to do that sort of like, nights and weekends it's still, sometimes some days I feel like it's like not enough, but it does feel meaningful. And in particular, recently I took part in an awareness campaign that Ascend launched called The Other Side. And it's really meant to kind of highlight a group of really amazing Asian executives who've like reached a certain level in their careers, but they talk about the other side, which is the challenges and the trials of like what it took to get there. And it's really meant to kind of show that, like, through the journey, you're going to go through some like major challenges. And there may be times when you feel like you can't get there, but ultimately look at all these people who have made it there. And so I'm like really proud of that work, and I'm proud of my association with this organization. I thank you so much for bringing it up so that I could share it with the rest of this Brand Innovators community as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think being in our business, we have the unique sort of purview to leverage our companies, leverage our networks, leverage our experiences to help drive and be a force for positive change. So I'm glad we could spend some time on it. Last question before we move into chat Q&A, but sort of building on that, can you talk about on the company side of things, diversity, equity, and inclusion, how it informs creative content, culture, corporate values?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the framework that that our team has set up is really it's pretty like straightforward and simple. Specifically within the marketing world, we've been saying to ourselves, like, number one, we got to get our own house in order, and that means if we have a representation, a diversity and inclusion issue within our team, we got to fix that, and we have to work towards it. It's all work in progress, and we're always like working towards it, because you're never really done when it comes to DE&I. But it is something that we have to actively be working on. And I'm so in awe of my team and the way that they've really embraced that in order to be able to get that representation within our team to like into a continual positive trajectory in terms of like the representation of like racial diversity on our team. So that's number one, get your house in order. Number two, we're marketers. We tell stories. We show the world our stories. We need to do better on storytelling and representation in the content that we put out there, because people should be able to see themselves in that content. And that's been something that actually, even like just like pre-pandemic, going back like even before 2 years, I think we had put together our own set of like just table stakes guidelines around representation within all of our content. And I'm so like proud to be able to say that my team has actually exceeded all of our benchmarks. So we are constantly, whether it's in influencer marketing, whether it's in our our actual like ad production, we are constantly working towards making sure that we have that representation, that we so that we can make sure that we're doing the best possible storytelling that we can. And then third is put your money where your mouth is. So, and that's really all about where you spend and who you spend with. It's really sort of like the invisible side of the marketing supply chain, whether it's production, whether it's agencies. And I will tell you, and be like very honest with you, we have more work to do on that side. And that's been a priority, and it hasn't been easy for us to kind of figure out in terms of like making sure that we find access, like find the right, agencies, find the right suppliers, find the right, media outlets through which to spend. But that's actually a big focus for us this year, because we have been making progress in the other two sort of pillars within our DE&I strategy. And that third one is one that we still have more work to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time and answering our questions. I know everybody was excited to get your perspective, and it's been great chatting and learning more. As we spend the last couple of minutes, there's a few questions that I'm going to read from the Q&A. The first, what's next for the brand on TikTok?
Oh God, I don't know. Can somebody else tell me? Because I swear, this is the thing that we're constantly trying to figure out for a platform that's evolved so rapidly. I mean, think about where TikTok was in 2020 versus where it is today. It's really unbelievable how much it's not an evolution, it's like a revolution. It's like revolutionized content, it's revolutionized social media, it's revolutionized like what entertainment really means. And so I wish that I could predict that. The only thing that I could say is that we're going to have a framework in place. We're going to continue with our framework in place for experimentation and constant learning and evolving our approach, because we know that what worked for us, like even 4 months ago, isn't necessarily what's going to work for us today. So it is a constant, always on mentality of learning, which is also why it's kind of addictive and exciting too.
Totally. We talked about the Great Resignation before. As you think about hiring, what are the specialties, expertise, qualities you look for in talent?
I mean, it's a tough one, because I feel like every time I have this conversation with other marketers, we talk about like how we're all looking for unicorns. But at the end of the day, it's sort of like, we're also just like regular people, and I myself have many development areas too. So it's not exactly like I can find like I'm not going to be able to find everything in talent. It's kind of like my job as a leader to bring in like the potential and really help to support and help to develop and grow the talent as well within our brand. But I will say that like the one thing that I often probably prioritize more than other things is like a gut sensibility for people and like humans and human storytelling, and that like understanding the creative spark and soul of the work that we do within marketing. And I don't just mean marketing like comms like and media. I mean, even on the product side, because, as you know, I have the product side of things, but you really have to understand the psychology of people and understand what inspires them in order to be able to create great product and create great marketing.
Yeah, well, I think, between the two of us and we both have twin children.
Yes.
Like we have a focus group for both TikTok and future talent right at home. So I think we'll both be set in that regard. One last question, sort of micro, but definitely timely. When you think about media and agency and the relationship between the two, what is your point of view on in-housing versus leveraging an agency partner?
I mean, right now, we do mostly work with outside partners, and a lot of that has been really about, for us, making sure that we have, that we leave the room for the things that we kind of keep like close to like the heart, and I just explained some of those things, like really this like maniacal obsession with like our audiences and our consumers and things like that. Those are the things that I feel like our team is really focused on, and having outside partners who can really have the time and the bandwidth to be the experts on the media side has really just been the model that's worked best for us, so that it leaves us sort of able to do what we're best at, which is understanding this brand and understanding our consumer. That's not to say that this is like forever, because, as you probably sensed from me, I'm very, very open to change and open to trying new things. But right now, I think our model really works well for us.